Welcome to the second video, or the lab 2 of the Microsoft Sentinel hands-on lab series. In this lab, we will just be concentrating on one peculiar topic, which is data connectors. And in this lab, we will have like 3 exercises again, like as we had 3 in the first lab. We also have 3 exercises here where we will have we will be configuring and deploying different data connectors. And so, like, before getting into the topic of what exactly we do, or like the getting into the lab, I just want to talk again a bit about like what are the data connectors, or like specifically for Azure data connectors. So it's like in general, it's like a feature in the Power Apps, or like I think it was also known as Microsoft Flow, in my opinion, before. So like Power Apps and Power Automation or Automate, you can find it in the documentation. So it's like conditionally a feature that allows you to create like different connections to the various data sources. Like it can be inside or outside the Microsoft ecosystem. So like on-premises, can be just cloud. There are like different ways, and this is usually, or like the main reason why it's used is to like, or these connectors are used is to enable each user or like each management role person to like interact or like manipulate the data in the sources, and to make it basically more easier, and also to make it more easier to automate your business processes. Again, when we talk about like few features, as we did also in the first part of like in general what Sentinel is and like the key features, the first is, as you could hear, like the word connectors itself, it says connectivity. So like that's what the key or like the key aspect of this in general data connector it is. So like it as also I talked about it before, that it provides like or offers a wide range of connections to different data sources. This can be like the SQL database, it can be SharePoint, OneDrive, the Microsoft 365, and also like various non Microsoft services like your Google Drive, Dropbox, Salesforce, many more. And also in general, like also your work space, so like what we will be looking for. Also it talks more about like, as I said, automation and integration. In this, like again, the Power Automate, what I also talked about just in general, it's like usually designed for your like workflow automation. So again, these are like different data connectors, like which do different parts, or like again specifically these are designed for automation. Power Automate is like designed for automation, and there are like also custom connectors, and these are like what the ones which we'll be focusing on, which are like, these are also pre-built connectors, but also you can change a few things inside, like you can create your own like custom connectors if you have like a specific data source that you want to look at, or a specific service that you want to look at, which is maybe not covered by the connectors that are already available into your Azure systems. Like it's also like, again, it allows you to basically expand the capabilities of what exactly data connectors can do. Again, like it's also part of security as well, and like because they have robust security features and like many authentication mechanisms, which is again like cloud is what promises to be more secure, and I think this is like a very general way of what they provide, because again it's related to data, so like your data remains protected like during interactions, during the exchange of information. So again, like this is a feature which is quite likely to be present. Again, overall, like when we talk about the data connectors, like Azure data connectors, they are like fundamental part of like this whole Power Platform. As I talked about before, like Power Apps and Power Automate, and it's basically used for like to automate workflow, to gather information quickly, like through different data sources. And like when you go more into the like the industrial version of it, like when you use it not just for your personal use or like for a small organization, but when you like expand your organization into like many different ways, many different parts, I think these will have a very huge impact, in my opinion. So now going to the lab 2, which is, as I said, like we will be talking mostly about data connectors in this. So the first thing that we will do is like we will enable the Azure Activity data connector. So starting our first exercise in the lab 2, probably if you're following along, this is where you reached, which was our third exercise of the first lab. So like the end of the lab 1, where we basically edited or like authorized the API connection. And then after this is completed, what we will do is like now we move to our data connectors. So for this, what you have to do is like you have to go to your Microsoft Sentinel, selecting the workspace, and in the configurations going to data connectors. So in the data connectors, like going into more content, what we'll do is like the first is doing the Azure Activity. So usually if you haven't installed it, any of these already, here you'll have an option which says like basically install. So all you have to do is click on it, and in few seconds the Azure Activity is installed. And the next step, what you have to do is like going to manage, and in this it will show you like configurations needed. We have to like pay attention to only the Azure activities, and here like click on the open connector page, and in the configurations this is not what we will be using, so we will focus on the second one, which is like connect your subscriptions through the connect your subscriptions through diagnostic settings, new pipeline. And in this, what we'll do is when you see the launch Azure, and click on the launch Azure policy assignment wizard, and in this what we'll do is we'll define the scope and make sure that you choose the right subscription. And usually if you have the like in a management stage, if you have a like the owner or like owner permission, what you can do is like you can assign the policy to configure like a collection of Azure Activity Logs from like all the subscription under the management group, like if you want to choose. So, and this also like optionally you can also choose the resource group. I will do it, and after you can also like do some exclusions, but like for this lab we won't be going into it. Make sure like the policy enforcement is enabled, and like also like make sure like who's assigning it as well, like that's also important. And what we'll do is like we go to the parameters, make sure that you uncheck this box and see that the effect is selected to deploy if not exist, and the enable logs is true. And the primary logs workspace is basically the log or like the Sentinel workspace that we want to select. Make sure that you select it, and we won't also like go more into the remediations and non-compliance messages. So like this, you can still go and check out what it says, but these are not what we will use. just click on review and create, and then clicking on create, you will see like that the policy is then completed. Once the policy is completed, the step 4, like here, this is what is important. What you have to look is that the role assignment creation is succeeded. So once you see this part, which means we have initialized this portion. So after doing the first part or the first exercise of this lab, the next is we will be enabling the Azure Defender data collector or the data connector. And for this, like, we jump back to our Sentinel, and here, like in the configuration, go back to the data connectors. And again, if you do not have the Microsoft Defender for Cloud installed, all you have to do is go on like Content Hub and like just type Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and like here you can type. Once you type it, once you click here, there will be an option that says install. Once you've installed, all you have to do is go on open the connector page, and after you click on the open connector page here, like as I've already connected, the only difference will be like when you start, it will you will see the configuration page like this, and all you have to do is click on the subscription and change the status from connected to or from disconnected to connected, and make sure that the bidirectional sync is enabled. Once you do this, you can see directly that the Defender for Cloud, the status is changed from connected. The next, so this was a very short exercise, and like the next, when we move towards enabling the Texi data connector, this is technically a very tedious exercise, or like a tedious process. Initially, before, there was an easier option. I think it was available since last year, 2022, where you could use Anomaly, and as they provided free Texi as well. But as it does not exist anymore, there are now two options in which you can use. One is the OTX method, the OTX vault, and the other is using the MISP. So for this lab, or like I will be personally using the OTX method, and I will like just give you an idea of all the things that you have to do. I will also try to show you how to get it done, what you have to do in this process. So like, but yeah, make sure that you have all the things like correctly followed, because like as this part is like quite tricky, so you have to make sure that you have all the things prepared. So like initially, what you have to do is that you have to make sure that you go to, like I'll quickly show you the website. So here, that's the like the ADL vault or the OTX vault website, where you have to, like I will put this in the link for this in the description as well. And yeah, so for this you have to create a account here. Just you can do it with Google, or like just fill up everything. And once you do this, like you will get it's basically a normal account where it will show you an API key. So if you're used to API documentations or reading the API documentations, I've used API in certain ways, it will be a bit easier for you, but just in case if you haven't, that like once you complete your sign up, there will be like a small dashboard where it shows you the a bit of your information, and on the side your personal API key. For like security reasons, I won't be showing this process, or like as in showing how you can get the API key, because it's very simple. Once you complete the sign up, it will show up, and then you can use this API as we move further. Just make sure that you have kept it safe somewhere, or just keep this website open till the time we reach this process. So the next is, what you have to do is, once you have obtained the API key, or like created your account, the next is like we have to register the app on Azure AD. So just go and type app registration. So here, app registration, and what you have to do is like so here I already have it, but I will also quickly show you a process. What you have to do is like you have to click on register an application. Just make sure you type, like, just give it some name, this here. So you can just make sure that you give it some name and just click on register. So once you have it, what you will notice is that you will have like your application ID, your tenant ID here. Like I will blur this, as it consists my client or like the client ID and the tenant ID, and this is useful for later parts. So like we will move to this part later, and I will tell you where to use this. So once you have created this, the next thing that you have to do is like you have to go to the API permissions, and here, like in the Microsoft Graph, what you have to do is like you have to create an applications, like selecting the application permissions, and this is basically to request the API permissions and specifically for the application. And now for the permissions, we are specifically using it for the threat indicator. So in threat indicators, make sure that you click the read write owned by, and click on like update permissions. And once you click the update permissions, what you have to do is like you have to grant the admin consent for this like specific thing. So here, like just click and then click yes. Once you do this, like you just click yes, and then like it will show that it's like granted. Make sure that you are signed in as a owner or the global administrator for like in the the Azure Active Directory to like give the consent, or else it won't pass. The next is what we have to do is like we need to create a secret for the application. So like as we don't have a username and password, specifically this part of username and password, this was used in the conventional way of like getting into the like creating the data connector for Texi. I will also show you which method was used before and which method is used currently, or like now after like the Anomaly decided to stop their free version. So yeah, the next point that we have to do is like what we do is we go back to our or like here at this point we just go to certificates and secrets, and here like we have to basically add a new secret. You can give like a description for your own explanation, and like you can choose the expiration depending on your choice. Like I usually select the 24 months, but yeah, specifically if you're using it for your own purpose, like not just for this lab but for your own purpose, it's more likely that you should use it for lesser time. So maybe 90 days, I think it's the most optimum one, or like the one which is used most commonly, or 180 days as well, so like 3 to 6 months. And then just click on add. Once you click on add, you will see here that like the password was uploaded, and here like you will see the value for this, which again, like this is again, so there are three things that you have to keep in mind. The one is the client ID, the tenant ID, and this value, so like your certificate or the secret ID, and these three things which we'll use later on. The next part is like we have to obtain a logic app from GitHub. So there's, I think, a really nice GitHub repository from like what you can use. It's from Cardis. I can show you. So I will also put this in the link. And for this, what you have to do is like make sure just go onto the link and click deploy to Azure. So this, once you click on deploy to Azure, you will have like the complete repository of like any Alien Vault or like the OTX in your Sentinel. So once you click on deploy, the next thing that you have to do is like here you have to go back to your like Sentinel, click the workspace, and in your automation, when you go to your automation, you will see that in your active playbooks this is added. So this was something which we enabled in our first laboratory, in the third exercise, and here like you will see that you have a new playbook which is the Alien Vault one. And once you go here, so in this we will do our like initial or our final steps. So here when you have to go to the Logic App Designer, and in the Logic App Designer, once it loads, so when I told about like keeping in mind that we have to use the tenant ID, the client ID, and the like the secret value. So these three things, what you have to do is like keep in mind that now is the time which you use it. So here in the tenant ID, at the value, don't change anything else. In the value, you put the tenant ID from before. In the client ID, don't change anything else apart from the value. Put the client ID. In the app secret, it's again the same, the secret value that we had. This is basically your username, password, and in the value you put here. And in the API key, what you'll see is the API key from your dashboard in the Alien Vault, which you created at the very start. Once you have added all these, here there will be an option which says to enable your Logic app, which you can also do at the very start when you deploy it to Azure through the GitHub. Or the next option is, what you can do is that you just go here, and there will be an option where you click enable, and the next is like that you run the trigger. So like click here and then run. Usually depending upon how many incidents or how many events you have, it's on an average it takes like 10 minutes for each 10,000 events. So just don't be surprised that if it takes long. On an average, if you have like 30,000 20,000 events, it will take up to 20 minutes to show. So, and what you can do is like you can just go on run history, and you can like check once it's completed. Like for me it took almost 11 minutes for it to get succeeded. And then yeah, you can like check this. Once this is completed, this is like the final, or like the final point of this exercise, or like of this lab. And so remember like what we did. We first enabled the activity data connector. The next point was we activated or like enabled the Defender data connector, and the third was the enabling the Texi data connector. So the third part, or like the third exercise for the second lab, was quite tedious, but it's also really important for you to get a really hands-on experience on how to do this, because especially after the change in when Anomaly decided to stop their free versions, it was really important that you get this system. So also just quickly to show you, as in once you go back to your Sentinel, so the data connector where it will show up is the threat indicator platform, so the TIP, and before it was the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence. Also, like you can use MISP. If you use MISP, then you can use the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence, because it works similarly. I can like show you in general. So like if you want to just before that, like if you want to connect, what it will show you is like these are the things that you have to fill up. So you need the API URL, you need the connection ID. Here again, like it's username, password, which you generate or like you add yourself. And for like the API URL, this was how Anomaly used to work, where you get an API and collection ID from them, and you could add it, and it was like very straightforward compared to now. But again, if you use MISP, even though this process is quite easier, but to set up MISP is again a tedious work, and it works through Ubuntu or like Linux. And as in general, like I found the Alien Vault more easier, or like more convenient in my opinion. That's why I use it. You can I can also put the documentation from them as well, like from MISP, and you can also try that if you are into Linux, and you can try it. Or if you want to just follow the path that I did, you can just make sure that you follow everything that we did in these steps. So this was the lab 2 and the second video of this series of the Sentinel hands-on lab, and I hope you get to learn a lot of things from this lab specifically, and I will see you again in the next one.